He's back into it in Chester. Here's El Senior. Yes! Yes!
The center back, Jacob Glesnes, is going for it.
Oh my God! What a goal! And that will do it! One of the best comebacks in recent years. 3 unanswered by the Union. And they go into the Gold Cup break. Winning it 3.
Hello, welcome to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd. Well, it's back yet again, and it's so crazy because I feel like we had this game about 2 weeks ago, something like that, and that week is Build Bonfire Week, whatever you want to call it. I'm calling it Build Bonfire Week because I do have on my Build Bonfire shirt that they sold last year at the Union Stadium when New York Red Bulls came to town. So joining me today to preview this Sunday's game against the New York Pink Cows is one of the hosts of the podcast called Post and Pints, Mr. Matt Sy. How are you doing, Matt?
Hey man, I'm doing wonderful, man. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. It's I think I told you, I heard you on Kevin Petit's podcast, Lad's podcast, and I saw you guys had Adam Booth on about a month or so ago, I believe it was. I was like, you know what? You're a New York Red Bulls fan. I should have had you on the first game and everything. And these games are coming so fast and everything. It's like a game every 4 days and everything. And so for whatever reason, I was like, yeah, I'm just not going to do a preview game for that. And, I'm doing it now and everything. So I'm super excited to have you on the show and everything. But like I said in the intro, you're one of the hosts of a podcast called Post and Pints. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about that podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. Once again, thank you so much for having me, Todd. Post and Pints, it is just me and my 3 friends who, God, we've been friends for a little bit too long now. Our big thing was for years, all of us follow MLS and European football for over the last decade. And, we 4 guys and we're just like, you know what? We've been told enough times that, hey, you know what? You guys should record something. You guys should do something. So basically we all got together and we're like, hey, let's give this a try. Let's give it a shot. And we definitely wanted to incorporate drinking into it because we definitely find ourselves at the local watering hole a little too often. And, nothing pairs better with soccer than beers and your best friends. So I feel like it's the ultimate combination. So we just ran with it and we do everything across the board MLS. We are all New York Red Bull fans, unfortunately. But across the board, we are all big, just MLS supporters. Across the board, we stay up. We're watching the 6 o'clock kickoffs all the way down to the 10 o'clock kickoffs. It's fun. It's really fun to break down every single game. We don't get to every episode. We don't have that allotted time, but I mean, it is a lot of fun and there's a lot of jokes, a lot of banter. We're just as much comedy as soccer, and I think that's what people really like.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you see a lot of podcasts follow the same kind of formula and everything. And I just know, you see a lot of fans. We all know that soccer is not huge in America, but if people are a fan of soccer, it's mostly the Premier League and they don't really care about MLS. So it's always nice to hear, that there's people that actually care about MLS and they care about European soccer too. So like you said, yeah, it's unfortunate that all of you guys are New York Red Bulls fan and everything, but at least you do support the league and everything. So that is, that's a check in my book and everything. And I rarely talk about other leagues on this podcast unless a player is linked with a said move from that league or that player is going to said league. But, you're also a Manchester United fan, as am I. So that's why I allowed you to come onto this podcast today. I'm only kidding. But first off, just how'd you get into Manchester United, then how'd you get into being a fan of the Red Bulls?
So at least with Manchester United, basically I fell in love with soccer altogether in middle school. I grew up in a very heavily American football family. My father, my brother, all of my cousins, everyone, it was all soccer. I'm not soccer. It was all American football. It was, you have to play football. You have to do that. And I played it through Pop Warner and it was fun. Don't get me wrong. I liked it, but I became friends with a lot of Eastern Europeans actually. And they were all like, hey dude, you should play rec league soccer. So I begged my parents, hey, let me play rec league soccer for a little bit just to try it. So they signed me up and I never stopped from there. Soccer immediately, I didn't follow any teams. I didn't, I was just like, I just love playing. And then it turned around that I would beg just for my parents, because I was still young and we only had like one TV in the house. So I was like, can I just watch one soccer game on TV? All my friends are talking about it. And at the time, this is going to be the worst I'm a Man United fan of all time, like walking into it. My favorite color was red. And my father turned on a game. It was Manchester United versus Chelsea. And I chose Manchester United strictly because they were wearing red jerseys. And I know that's the worst story of all time, but I never looked back. I didn't care who the players were. I didn't care, how well they were doing. I like them because they were red.
Yeah, so it could have been Liverpool or Arsenal on your TV, and you would have been either one of those fans.
And that's exactly the story I tell. I'm just like, if fate wanted me to root for another team, it would have been that way. And then to turn it to the Metro Stars at the time when I first started following them, it was my best friend's birthday, again in that middle school era, and his dad got us tickets to a Metro Stars game at Giant Stadium. And this is, again, when I'm first being introduced to it all. So I'm just like, okay, I go to one game, and it was the supporter section. Now, I'm in middle school, but it was the supporter section. It was the Empire Supporters Group who I was seeing, and I'm just like, that's incredible. Like, that's wonderful. I just looked at my friend, and I'm like, I just want everything that this team is, because I've been to college football games. I've been to NFL football games. You don't have anything like the supporter sections. And I'm just like, that's amazing. And I want to be all about it. And then basically years down the road, once I was old enough to go to games by myself, I was able to drive to what eventually would be Red Bull Arena. That was it. I was just like, I was hooked from day one. I found a way to get into the supporter sections, and I have not looked back.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I know that's a big talking point for us Philadelphia Union fans when people want to bring their friends and everything to games and everything because, they're used to going to 76er games or they're used to going to Eagles games. And people say all the time, come sit in the River and the Sons of Ben section. Like, it is nothing like college basketball atmosphere. It's nothing like NFL atmosphere. It's nothing like a 76ers game. This is what it's all about. This is what supporter culture is all about. And, to some people's credit, they've taken people up on their offer, say, yeah, I'll come out. And, last year was my first year going to Subaru Park, which was then Talent Energy. My friend and I, we sat in 117, which is right across the section of the supporter section. And, me growing up watching European soccer for going on 14 years and everything, I'm like, you see fans stand up, you see people chant, scream loud and everything, and I'm like, why is nobody doing it in this section and everything? And so I remember my friend and I got up during a corner or something, like, that's when those guys in that section are supposed to stand and everything off of a corner, and we're like, okay, well, look, they're standing and everything. Then something happened. I forget what happened, and we stood up. All these people behind us were like, sit down, you're blocking our view. And we're like, what? Like, you guys just stood for a corner. Like, at the time, we didn't get it. And we're like, these guys across are standing the whole game, so why can't we? So as the game goes on, somebody's like, yeah, if you guys want to do all that, you have to go right across in the supporter section. So we're like, yeah, we're never sitting here again and everything. Yeah, it was cheap tickets and everything. It's like, but, this is what we expected. We wanted to chant, we wanted to cheer and everything. We wanted to stand. We wanted to be what it looks like on TV for European soccer games. So, yeah, I totally get that and everything. And for people that are, you're probably not debating about going to Union games because if you listen to this podcast, then you're more than likely going to Union games. So I don't have to convince you guys otherwise. But real quick, I want to go back to Manchester United. Are you excited about the Donny van de Beek signing, or you think there still needs to be work to be done?
I'm both. I am absolutely both. One, I'm more happy, at least along the lines of how quickly this deal happened. Unfortunately, Manchester United, they do good business, but they don't do it in a timely fashion. Usually you hear when the beginning of a transfer window starts, you'll see something drag for the entire 2 to 3 months, and then it get done in the last week, and United don't break any ground, and they have to pay what the asking price was anyway. During the January transfer window, Donny van de Beek actually agreed to a deal with Real Madrid at almost $65 million. And the fact that United are getting him for 40, and I understand, there was that connection with Edwin van der Sar. But I'm just still surprised on how quickly it happened. There were rumors that surfaced on a Sunday, and then less than a week later, he's wearing the jersey. And for me, that was absolutely baffling. Like, that was the part that absolutely got me. It's like, you got this guy who's going to be starting on the Dutch national team and was one of the best players in the Dutch league now for the past few years. And he's only 23 years old. Like, he's only going to make your team better. And I think the biggest thing is, and you saw it towards the end of the Europa League, actually, even during the end of the Premier League, Ollie wanted to go to his bench so bad. But then he looked at his bench and he saw Jesse Lingard, Andres Pereira, and really, and Juan Mata. Nothing against Juan Mata. He just can't keep up with the pace of the Premier League anymore. You look at that now. If he doesn't start Donny van der Beek, he can go in the 60th minute and realize, hey, Bruno Fernandes isn't working out, or hey, Paul Pogba's not working out. I can sub one of these guys out and bring in Donny van der Beek, and it's something fresh and something, it injects something different. I know on one of your previous episodes, you were talking about how the Philadelphia Union have a really tough time going to the bench, and they just have the same things every time. Well, it's the same thing with Manchester United. I mean, like clockwork, in the 75th minute, they bring on Dan James for either Mason Greenwood or Marcus Rashford. Then they bring on Igalo in the 82nd minute. Like, it's clockwork. You know what they're going to do before they even do it. And it's not even like it's a coaching thing. It's just they don't have the right tools. You look at the way Chelsea is built this year. Chelsea's second team can compete with some of the better Premier League teams. They're built with that depth that, a long Premier League season has to build up. And I think that's the other part I wanted to deal with is they did a great job with Donny van der Beek. They built up and they added some depth. And yeah, you know what? I think Ole Gunnar might find a way to make all three of those guys play at the same time, but the job's not done. You still need to go get another center back. You do need to go out. And again, there's now rumors that the Jadon Sancho deal was never off, that it's just the teams have gone quiet where they're not releasing things to the press. Again, the issue with Manchester United that other teams don't have to deal with is every single day when you check social media, they're linked to a new player. There's a new bid. There's new talks. But a lot of these players sometimes just add Manchester United to the conversation to get a few extra dollars from a new contract deal. And it's almost like they're just using them as a ploy. And that's the unfortunate part with being a United fan, is when you do make the most money out of anyone in the world, you're going to be linked to everyone in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're spot on. I mean, there's nothing there I would disagree with you about. I mean, yeah, it's great that they brought in Donny, but, we're all waiting for Jadon Sancho and definitely another center back and everything, but we'll see. I think the transfer window closes in October, so we still have about a month and everything. But, let's just go ahead and talk about the New York Red Bulls. So, as people listening know, as you know, obviously, the Red Bulls are coming off a 1-0 loss to DC United, which DC scored in the 97th minute off of a corner. The result puts New York in 7th place in the East with a point total of 11. We know the Union are coming off of a 1-0 defeat against Columbus, which sees the Union sit in 4th place, tied with Orlando with 15 points. So, Matt, just what exactly, other than giving up that last-minute goal against DC United, what went wrong for the Red Bulls?
You know what? And you even described it in the description when you were talking about the last Red Bull versus Philly game, which was the Red Bull do take advantage of the chances provided. But the issue is they got rid of, I don't want to say they got rid of, they let go of Bradley Wright Phillips. And Tom Barlow and Brian White are both going to have good careers in the MLS, but they're both still very young. And the problem you have here is they don't have that finishing touch yet. They don't have that killer mentality where you're watching some of these balls be delivered into Tom Barlow, and Tom Barlow more resembles what BWP was, someone who's going to just ride that defensive line and he's going to try to beat you with his hold-up play. But he just missed his chances by, just a hair here or just a hair there. And when the Red Bull have the opportunity in front of goal, they panic, because they just don't have that leadership like they've had in past years. Chris Armas, I mean, everyone now knows Chris Armas is no longer the coach of the New York Red Bull, but Chris Armas for the last 4 or 5 games has had starting lineups that have been 6 or 7 different changes since the last game. And I understand before he did get fired today, he was trying his best to find the best lineup that worked. And you see it all over the place. It doesn't MLS, Europe, it doesn't matter. If you're not playing at least semi-consistent starting 11, people are going to get confused on where they're supposed to be. They're going to get confused on where they're supposed to, like, again, you send a through ball sometimes because you know your teammate's going to be there. But if it's a different teammate for 4 straight games, someone might not make that run. Someone might not make that cut. When the New York Red Bull won the Supporter Shield and were the best team in 2018, I could tell you that starting lineup from the first game of the season all the way until the game where we beat them in Orlando to clinch the Supporter Shield. It was the same lineup every single game. You get used to that, chemistry. And the issue is I think the Red Bull are just hurting because they don't have consistent chemistry at the moment. They're bringing in new players. There were a couple players who have been with the franchise for a lot of years who have recently left. The Red Bull have let go. It's just a lot of different things, but now that the Red Bull, as of about 5 minutes before this podcast, I quickly checked because that's how quickly things can happen. They still haven't found a new coach, so they're going to eventually promote someone. It sounds like from within. It doesn't look like they're going to go with like someone from external, at least until the end of the year. So I'd like to see what happens. Sometimes you get looking ahead. Sometimes you always get those teams the day after they fire their coach. I'll never forget Manchester United the day after they fired Josie. Didn't they win their next game 5-1 or something?
Yeah.
Sometimes you get that just instant burst of energy. But the Red Bull are almost there. As a Red Bull fan, I'm excited for what the future has because there are a lot of young pieces, but it's just, if I even look back to the game against Philly, it was just, it's missed opportunities. And for the last 20, 30 minutes of the Philly game, it was just, the Red Bull had the opportunity to put balls in the net and they didn't take advantage of chances. And that might as well, in the most inappropriate way possible. Someone on my podcast likes to say the Red Bull couldn't finish in a whorehouse.
Yeah, that's a pretty good way to put it. But, you touched on a lot of the points I wanted to bring up, and we'll still bring them up even though you just hit on them. I mean, I'm sure you guys are definitely still wishing you had a player like Bradley Wright Phillips. I mean, yeah, he's 35 years old, but he has 4 goals on the year for LAFC, where you looked at him last year for the Red Bulls, you just were like, yeah, this guy's done and everything. We can't wait to get him out of the team and everything. And it looks like he's found new life in LA. And now maybe that's because the weather is warmer out there and everything. It's better climate than being on the East Coast. Who knows? But you brought it up. You look at a guy like Tom Barlow, who's 23, I believe it is. He's supposed to be the guy for you right now, and he's not. And in my opinion, he looked pretty terrible against New England. Yeah, he was getting in good positions to score and everything, and that's great and everything. You've got to be making those runs, because if you're not making those runs, then you're just not going to be in position. But he hit the post, I believe, in that game. He had 5 shots in the game, and to his credit, 3 of those shots were on target. It's just he's not putting the ball in the net. I mean, he's getting service. Nobody on this team can say that they're not getting service. They had 17 shots against DC, and only 4 of them were on target, and 3 of those were because of Barlow. It's just, you guys are lacking a striker's finish. You guys have no strikers on your team that can finish it, and it's got to be disappointing, especially with a team like DC, who's like the whole starting 11's out injured for the rest of the season. And they found a way to scrap a goal at the end of the game and everything, when you guys thought, okay, well, at least we'll get a point from this game and everything. And nope, DC snatches all 3 points and everything. And yeah, I mean, it's got to be disappointing. It's, I don't want to jump ahead in my points and everything, but, just how concerning is it for you that in 9 games, you guys only have 7 goals and just none of your strikers can find the back of the net?
And you know what? You hit it right on the head. And honestly, the thing that kills at least the Red Bull community is so Bradley Ray Phillips was hurt for the majority part of last year. He was coming off of a groin injury. It seems like he just couldn't shake. And even towards the end of the year, he had even if the Red Bull put him in for the last 10, 15 minutes of the games, Bradley Wright Phillips isn't that type of striker. Bradley Wright Phillips needs to kind of feel the game a little bit out. And it's funny enough, I even, the day he got announced to LAFC, I posted on some LAFC like subreddit on Reddit. And I was just like, this is coming from a New York Red Bull fan. Treat him well. He'll do you well. Don't let his age fool you. And I got nothing but hate thrown in my direction. Everyone's just like, please, we don't want your scrappy seconds. You know, he's going to ride the bench behind Vea. I bet you all those fans that gave me flack are probably praising the ground he walks on at this point. But no, but you got it exactly. It is the Red Bull didn't have a backup plan. The Red Bull thought to themselves like, hey, Tom Barlow is going to come in and he's just going to do wonderful things. Brian Waite's going to come in and just do wonderful things. They were expecting Royer, who's now on pushing 32, 33, I think at this point. He is, you know, he's not getting into his best years. It's the people they've been depending on now have either aged or the club has let go, and the youth that they're trying to interject are not ready to be the starters. And that's really it. There have been games this year where the Red Bull have not started a forward. Like Royer has been the only person on the lineup you could consider a forward, but he's a midfielder. He's a left midfielder, but they're playing him in a striking position. And it's just, it's difficult when you see those lineups and you think to yourself, like, what do they think that they're going to win with this lineup? You're playing a game with basically 4 or 5 defenders and 5 midfielders with a striker who's not a striker. I understand the game plan that they're trying to do, and Chris Armas at the beginning of the season advertised that they were going to do a more 4-2-2-2 formation, which basically he ditched like halfway through the second game. It's just, there's too much chaos going around right now, and I feel like Chris Armas lost control of everything he was doing. And I think, you know, the roof eventually caved on him, and not only did he get fired, but his head assistant got fired, and there's even rumors that the rest of his coaching staff aren't safe. So it's we're going to have to see what happens. But no, you hit it right on the head. They have a good game plan, they have a good strategy, but they don't have forwards who can finish.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, you talked about it and you just finished talking about it. I mean, Chris Armas has been let go. And when he took over for Jesse March in July of 2018, I believe it was, I think it was July, the Red Bulls went on a crazy run of 12-3-3, and they won the Supporters Shield, like you said, down in Orlando. And in 71 games for Chris that he managed for the Red Bulls, he went 33 wins, 11 draws, and 27 losses. And I mean, to be fair to him, it's not been an easy season at all for the Red Bulls for Chris. He lost key players in Kamara Lawrence, Michael Mario, and Luis Robles. And I think last season, your best player, in my opinion, was probably Josh Sims, who I think went back to Southampton. I think you guys extended his loan, but then at the end of the MLS's Back Cup, he went back to Southampton. That's a guy who I'm a little bit surprised hasn't come back, because he played well for you guys, and especially against the Union in the playoff game and everything. I mean, he was causing problems on a really, really super rainy day and everything, and he scored the first goal of the game and everything. I mean, he blasted that shot past Andre Blake and everything. So, I mean, to try to make things right, I just, I don't think it's all on Chris and everything. He's lost key players, and the Red Bulls really haven't invested too much yet. I know they brought in a striker from Salzburg, I believe, on loan and everything, a Ghanaian forward and everything, but I'm not even sure, how he'll adjust to the league, because at least we know here in Philadelphia, anytime the Union make a midseason signing and everything, those guys don't adjust to MLS, and I feel like that's how most players are in MLS. It's a different league when what those guys are used to playing, and more times than not, when those guys are playing in Europe and everything, their season just ended and everything, so they're trying to rest their bodies and everything, while MLS is at mid-form and everything. So now they got to get caught back up to the intensity of the league, and so it takes them about a half a year to get adjusted. So do you think that it was the right decision to just let go of Chris, or do you think that he was hard done by the decision?
So if you checked Red Bull Twitter this morning when the announcement was first called, there was more people celebrating in the streets. The biggest issue that at least I'm more leaning that it was the right decision to let Chris Armas go. The reason why is I understand a lot of the decisions the Red Bull have done, but it's the inconsistency on a game plan, the inconsistency on things that were within his control. And I think that's the main reason why the Red Bull fan base has had a really hard time with him. This goes all the way back to the season he took over for Jesse Marsh. They won that supporter shield, and I'm more than confident in saying this. And I've gotten some backlash from Red Bull fans saying this as well. He basically took Jesse Marsh's team and put them on autopilot. It was basically Jesse Marsh's team with Jesse Marsh's strategy, with his game plan, and Chris Armas just had to show up and just let his team do what he had to do. There was no drop off. I was really surprised because when Jesse Marsh did leave for Red Bull Salzburg, I expected the worst drop off in history. I expected we just lost one of the best coaches in MLS. Deservedly. He went and he's now on the right path, and now he's already being linked to like Dortmund and stuff like that. And that would be awesome. That would just be seeing a US coach in a prime European position would be just amazing for just the American soccer culture. But I expected the worst. And when Chris Armas came in, and I'll give him credit, he didn't screw up. I think that was the best thing, is he took Jesse Marsh's team with Jesse Marsh's players. That was a loaded lineup. In 2018, from the guys we were starting to all the way at the last person on the bench, that team was loaded from top to bottom. You had basically Luis Robles in his final year of his prime. You had BWP still in prime form. You had the best back line in the MLS, and I have no issue saying that. In 2018, Mike Murillo, Kamar Lawrence, Aaron Long, and this is when Aaron Long was heavily linked to Europe, and Tim Parker having the best year of his career. That was the best four in the entire MLS. So there were a lot of things going for Chris, where he just basically just had to keep the ship going straight, and it wouldn't have screwed up. And the one and only game he tinkered with the game plan and tinkered with the starting lineup, and just he needed to make his changes, was the first leg of the Eastern Conference Final against Atlanta. And we got beaten the piss out of, to the point where we couldn't recover at home. That was supposed to be the year. That was supposed to be the year the Red Bull won MLS Cup. Everything was perfectly lined up for us, because we would have faced a Portland team that wouldn't have been able to handle the high press that we offered. It was all set in the stars. But he tinkered with the lineup. He took out, I think he either took out Kamar Lawrence, or he played both Kamar Lawrence and Connor Lade. Connor Lade, who shouldn't have been playing that game. And they were playing a back five when they did need to play a back five. And it was just, he messed I'm not saying he messed everything up, but he made all the incorrect decisions. And I think there's been a grudge that Red Bull Nation has had towards him since that date, on top of letting go of BWP. I mean, let's be fair. The Red Bull organization let go of BWP and Luis Robles on the same day. Two club legends, one of which his number is retired. They let them go on the same day. The fan base has just been really hard done with a lot of things in a row. And unfortunately, as much as I blame Chris Armas for things, I don't want to say he's at fault for it all, but he does deserve a little bit of the flack. But at the same time, the club kind of didn't set him up for success.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree with that. And so as we head into this game, Philadelphia Union versus New York Red Bulls, first thing I got to ask you, and it's okay if you say you don't consider this, because most New York Red Bulls fans don't, but do you consider this a rivalry at all between the Union and the Red Bulls, or what are your thoughts on that? And like I said, it's okay if you say no, because nobody in MLS wants to consider us the rival. So,
so you know what's funny? I've had this I've talked with Adam Booth, and I've had this I listened to his Sons of Ben podcast as well. I know it's so blasphemy, a New York Red Bull supporter listening to the Sons of Ben pod, but I think those guys are great. He said the exact same thing. Like, no one wants to be our rival, and that's fine. I don't understand the premise. Like, when I became a supporter, I don't understand the premise that came in that, oh wait, we're not rivals with them. And I understand, because the Red Bull are rivals with, I know we're rivals with DC United. That's clear as day. We don't like New England. I understand that. We don't like, there's this hatred towards the LA Galaxy that's been lingering for many years. And I understand where that came from. They're one of the original teams. There's just a lot of hate there. The MLS had to put a second team in New York. So we didn't even get a choice in that one. And it's funny because NYCFC turns to us and they're like, oh, you're our biggest rival. And they're just like, we look at them and we're like, how does it feel that you're like our third biggest rival? Like, you realize like we hate DC and New England more than we hate you, but it's okay. You do you guys. Continue playing in a baseball stadium. I don't understand why the Union aren't rivals with the Red Bull. I look at it the same way I believe the Red Bull are now becoming a rival with Atlanta United. I mean, that game is as highlighted as ever. We basically, I'll never forget, it was, I can't remember the month, but we went into their stadium. Now, this was the year they did win MLS Cup, but this is the year we won the Supporter Shield, and they were destined to win the Supporter Shield, and they were running over teams. And all week, the only thing people on ESPN were talking about is, hey, how bad is Atlanta going to beat the New York Red Bull? And I think the Red Bull walked in with a chip on their shoulder. They're sitting here like, well, hold on one second. We're second in the MLS. They're first, but we're second. Hold on one second. Turned around and beat them 3-1 with our backup goalkeeper, Ryan Mira, at the time. I'm telling you right now, there wasn't one Red Bull fan who didn't have a smile on their face, but I'm telling you right now, the Atlanta fan base took it as personal insult that we decided to play against them. And there's just been a rivalry there ever since. We always end up meeting each other at the most important times of the season. We always meet, like, we've met the couple times in the playoffs. They don't like us. Their fan base does not like us. Like, honestly, it's crazy. The Red Bull fan base, like, it's really hard to walk to a Red Bull tailgate, like outside the stadium one day. You're not going to find people who are going to throw things at you. It's more of a friendly environment, but more people will welcome you than not. Atlanta's the opposite. We've turned around. We've gone to Atlanta and we've gotten crap thrown at us. They don't like us. They consider us like public enemy number one. And it's interesting. And that's a rivalry that's been nice and organic because now it's turned into something. But what's nice is I feel like there's something organically brewing against the Union as well. It's not forced. I don't think rivalry should be forced. Rivalry should be something that's just, it's an organic hatred. And you're starting to see the Red Bull and the Union play each other at very key parts of this game. Like, that's a game you look forward to. Like, when the Union are on the calendar, you're like, hey, that's going to be a really good game. We're seeing in the playoffs a game. That's going to be another really good game. Like, and what's nice is the like, because this is where people from NYCFC think we're rivals. You know, at the beginning of the rivalry, we own them. You know, Andre Pirlo, David Villa, Frank Lampard, I don't care who you have. You lost 7-0. Like, that's going to be something that we're going to have on a banner for the rest of our lives, and they're never going to be able to live that down. Luis Robles once said, we scored a touchdown in a baseball stadium against a soccer team.
It's great.
But I'm on the fence, though. I'd like to, like, if you're talking about geographic wise, New York and Philadelphia, they usually don't, their sports teams usually don't like each other. And I don't understand the premise that a lot of the Red Bull fan base, like, oh, they're not our rival. They're not our rival. And I'm like, I understand, because we're just going to hold that to a line. But I think something is brewing. And if it's not a rival already, it's going to be something very close in the near future. And I think this is just something that we all need to appreciate is growing organically and not something that's being forced by the MLS. Like, oh, New York Derby, New York Derby, New York Derby. And I'm sitting here like, you know, we do have a game against DC in 2 weeks. Do you not want to make it on a Wednesday night? I'd appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, anytime New York Red Bulls are on the schedule and everything, that's the game that we all circle and everything. Everybody seems to come out to the stadium no matter how bad or good the Union are playing that year and everything, because everybody wants to see the Union beat up on the Red Bulls. And I'll go over the stats at Red Bull Arena for the Union here in a little bit, but I feel like, you know, just nobody wants to accept it. It's like we try to get it with DC United because they're right down the road on 95. We try to get it with New England because they're up the road on 95. We try to get it with NYCFC. Nobody's like, yeah, you're just Philadelphia. You're nothing to worry about and everything. But, you know, last year the Union had the best season ever. This season they've been playing well and everything. You know, if the Union played DC United, play Red Bulls in the playoffs this year or something and win that game, you know, those are how you, like you said, you get the organic rivalries. It's like, oh, wow, like you guys are beating us in the games that actually means something. Like, we don't like this. And it's like, okay, well, now we don't like you guys because we thought we had a good team to advance far and everything. And you guys took us out. Okay, well, now we were going to circle this game next season and everything. We're going to look forward to it. But like I said, I'll talk about the Union's record at Red Bull Arena. The Union in 12 games at Red Bull Arena in the regular season, they have 1 win, 8 losses, and 3 draws, and they have a -8 goal differential. And to find the last time the Union have won at Red Bull Arena, you've got to go all the way back 5 years ago on the date of May 24th of 2015. The Union won that game 2-0, and Nagara and CJ Sapong scored the goals that day.
Okay, now I remember that.
Yeah, yep. And look, I said it the last time these two teams met that more than likely the Red Bulls were going to win the aerial duel battle, which they won 35 out of the 59 headers. And I expect the same thing to happen again. There's no shame in saying that the Red Bulls are a really good team at when it matters to win the ball in the air. They've got Tim Parker, Aaron Long. They're just really good center backs that, aren't afraid to put it on the line and everything. They're just good at timing it. Both teams are good at attacking down the flanks. Both of these teams love to press each other. And we'll see it again, that I feel like, because we always see it. And these games are just always so tight. I think the stat last time these guys played at Subaru Park was off the last 4 games that ended in Philadelphia was by a score of like 4-3, 3-2. It was a 1-goal differential and everything. And that's not been the case when the Union go to Red Bull Arena. So I don't know what I expect and everything. And I do, and I'll give my prediction here in a little bit. But, if the Union want to win this game, my 3 keys are: 1, they got to finish their chances. We saw them create a ton of chances against Columbus last game. They didn't score. Casper and Sergio had back-to-back chances against New York Red Bulls in the second half. They just didn't put it away. The Union let the New York Red Bulls stay in that game all game in the second half. The Red Bulls had more possession of the ball. They had more shots in the second half. The Union had poor giveaways. And luckily for the Union, like we talked about earlier, the Red Bulls don't have anybody that can put the ball away. And, you said you're optimistic. You think that there's a good core of young players on this team. The more they play together and everything, something good's going to be brewing for the Red Bulls. But, all that doesn't matter right now. The Union, when they create these chances, they've got to finish them. Point number 2, they've got to time their runs so much better. The Union went off, I think, 2 times against Columbus, and when they played the New York Red Bulls, they went off sides 5 times. Tim Parker and Aaron Long, they've played with each other for a while now, and they hold a very tight line. They know when to pull the offsides trap at the right moment. They know when not to. And, that was really, really frustrating when the Union were building something, but you see Casper go off, and you would see Andrew Vutin go off sides. You'd see Brendan Aronson go offside. Like, come on, guys. Like, we're going back and forth and everything. We just won this ball back and everything, and we got a striker going off sides when it looks like we can go right on the counterattack. And New York Red Bulls are just sitting there like, yeah, we'll take this all game and everything. Come on, Casper. Keep going off sides. Don't time your run and everything. So they got to time the runs a lot better. And then point number 3, if they want to win, like I said, don't give away stupid giveaways. Don't turn the ball away stupidly. They did a good job against Columbus, not giving the ball away that led to straight goal opportunities. Mark McKenzie and Kai Wagner, the last time the Red Bulls and the Union met, they both had 2 huge giveaways in the second half that led to an opportunity for a goal for New York Red Bulls. Again, we keep talking about it. They don't have anybody that can finish, but watch this be the game that the New York Red Bulls have somebody that can finish. Ray Gaddis and Jacob Glesnes also had some sloppy passing at times. Like I just said, the Red Bulls and the Union, they press really, really well. They do a good job pressing the Union in the second half, and the Union gets sloppy. And it almost led to a couple goals, and they got lucky with that. So if the Union want to win, finish your chances, time your runs, don't have stupid giveaways. And maybe some of you guys are like, yeah, duh, that's pretty obvious. But, I want to hear your lineup prediction, Matt, and I want to know a score prediction from you.
I mean, lineup prediction. So if Chris Armas was still the head coach, I'd have one. But because I have no idea who's coming in, I'm kind of like dealer's choice. I can kind of pick anything. And if I'm wrong, I can get away with a loophole here. I still expect Mira to be in goal. I think it's one of the biggest disappointments, though, is like our biggest signing in this offseason was a backup goalkeeper. Like you lost your franchise goalie and franchise striker, and the best thing you did was pick up a guy who is a meme within the Red Bull community because he wore a hat at Red Bull Arena on the field once. Nothing against Jensen. He's a great guy. I've actually had the opportunity of bumping into him. He's a really nice guy, but I mean, I've only seen a hat being worn by a goalkeeper twice in my entire life, and one is Dean Henderson when he played for Sheffield United. But I have Ryan Meara in net. That back line that they've been keeping about similar now. It's been Pendant, who they've picked up from the second division of the French league on a free, if I'm not mistaken. Tim Parker, Aaron Long. Tim Parker will be back. He was on a red card from the New England game, so I really expect Tim Parker and Aaron Long to link up again. Kyle Duncan has been the best player on the New York Red Bull this year. When him and Florian Valot at the beginning of the season were doing those overlapping runs, it was getting Red Bull fans way too excited. And for me, someone who's worried because Valot picks up ACL injuries like I can pick up cereal from the supermarket. It's just that easy. It's like I was screaming like I want this guy the second he's not on the field to be wrapped in bubble wrap and stored in a closet, because I really don't want this guy getting hurt. But I expect that back line to be Pendant, Parker, Long, and Duncan. CCJ, Caceres Jr. has been a consistent rock for the New York Red Bull this entire season. I do expect him to start. He is one of the young shining stars. He was supposed to be eventually the replacement for Tyler Adams, but it's taking him a few years longer than Tyler Adams did, and that's no blaming to him. Tyler Adams was the anomaly. Tyler Adams came in at the age he came in and was way too good, way too quick, and God, did the world not celebrate when Tyler Adams scored that goal against Atletico Madrid? I cried. I cried as a New York Red Bull fan, because I'm just like, you're seeing this 19, 20-year-old kid who I've had the opportunity of seeing him play with Red Bull too. And seeing him play at 15, 16 years old, and now he's 18, 19 years old, scoring goals in Champions League quarterfinals, and you're just crying. But I see CCJ. I believe Sean Davis, at least for the meantime, will get the start. Sean Davis, I compare someone to like a Michael Carrick. He's not going to do anything crazy. He's not going to do anything flashy, but he's just going to get the job done. He's not going to make a mistake, but he's not going to do anything that's going to be like, wow, look what Sean Davis did. I don't know if he'll retain his captaincy. That was actually a big talking point through Red Bull Twitter today, is will Sean Davis be able to keep his captaincy? He was labeled captain by Chris Armas and hasn't really stepped up to that captain's level yet this year. He is still fairly young. So that's still to be determined. I'd like to see Kaku being that number 10 position. Kaku on his day is one of the better number 10s in the league. The year he came in 2018, him and Bradley Wright Phillips was the deadliest 1-2 combination, and he's still trying to find that level. I'd like to see Florian Valot at the right wing. When completely healthy, Florian Valot is one of the best offensive players we have. I can't see them taking out Royer with the left mid position. And then I'd like to see Tom Barlow up front again. It's one of those things where, you know what, you just got to give him another game or two before you go to Brian White. Brian White had a couple games. I feel like in return, you must give Tom Barlow a couple games. And if that doesn't work out, maybe you go back to Brian White. Or we did just bring in Samuel Tete. You hopefully, see if you interject him. You also brought in Drew Yearwood from a Division II team in the Premier League, Brentford, if I'm not mistaken. So you have options, but I believe that'll be the best starting lineup, at least for the Red Bull. Prediction-wise, before Chris Armas got fired, I thought it was going to be like a 2-1, 3-1 Philly game. I did believe Phil. No, and especially on our podcast, we are as biased as humanly possible. We are all Red Bull fans, and at the end of the day, we'd love to see the Red Bull win. But you look at the team that Philly has, and you see some of the young rising stars they have. We at our podcast cannot stop talking about Brandon Aronson enough. We physically can't. And the fact that his brother is going through the second tier of Philadelphia Union Soccer, and we're hearing is even better than his older brother, scares the crap. It shouldn't just scare the crap out of us. It should scare the crap out of the entire MLS. But after Chris Armas got fired, you and I talked a little bit. I don't know if there might be this like internal rage where like the players may turn around and like just go off. I expect a 2-2 draw. I think a 2-2 draw. I feel like both teams would walk away happy with that. I feel like, you as you said, the Union have struggled at Red Bull Arena. I feel like a point would be a good point to take home. And then at the same time, a point where there's more than one goal scored for the New York Red Bull. I think Red Bull, the chaos that is Red Bull Twitter would kind of be quiet for at least 24 hours.
Yeah, so I do agree with you. I do think this game's going to end in a draw. I think it's going to be 1-1. I know myself, I'll be pretty pissed if the Union give up 2 goals for a team that cannot finish and everything. I mean, I know the Union have given up 9 goals this season, but for the most part this season, they've played really well defensively. Against you guys, we kept a clean sheet. Against New England, we kept a clean sheet. Against DC United, we only gave up 1 goal. Against Columbus, we gave up 1 goal, who I believe Columbus is probably the best team in MLS. The Union aren't getting scored on twice at all. The only time that they've given up more than 1 goal in a game was our first 2 games in the season against FC Dallas and then LAFC, which was a crazy, crazy game that I can't believe that game happened back in March. And it feels like it was it feels like it was last season. That's how long ago it was. But ever since then, the Union are only giving up 1 goal and no goals. So, yeah, I can't, or Portland, they gave up 2 goals and everything. But, yeah, I can't see the Union giving up 2 goals. I can definitely see them giving up a goal and everything. Just because, like you said, a new coach coming in, these players are going to be motivated, I feel like. I feel like it's going to spark something in them. Okay, look, we need to start playing better, or we're also going to be on the chopping block. We're going to, get sold, get let go, whatever. Like you said, you guys let go of club legends like Bradley Wright Phillips and Luis Robles. And nobody on your team right now, other than, I would say, Tim Parker and Aaron Long, are the only ones that could potentially consider themselves legends. I mean, they're definitely not there yet for Bradley Wright Phillips or Tim Parker, but, they're the only ones right there who you could potentially make a case for. So I feel like, these players are going to be like, yeah, we need to turn up because just like Chris, our jobs could be on the line here as well. So I think it's going to be 1-1. In goal, I think it's going to be Andre Blake. But the thing that I do find a little bit interesting is because before I give the lineup is Jim Curtin said before Columbus that Kai Wagner were resting him for New York Red Bulls. We need him against the Red Bulls. Then in his press conference today, he says, yeah, Kai's status for Sunday's game will go down to the wire. That's a lot different than him saying, yeah, we're pretty confident that he's going to play against New York Red Bulls. Now it's going to go down to the wire. Now, maybe it's mind games. We see coaches do that all the time. Apparently, El Seno has a minor ankle injury, but Curtin thinks he'll be okay by game time. And then a lot of fans were confused last game why a right back in Olivier Mbaizo played as a left back against Columbus. Jim came out and said Matt had a tough game against DC in a game where we're winning 3-0. It should be stable, and he should be playing with confidence. We didn't see that. Matt's at his best when he's proactive and not reactive. So because of those quotes today, I think we'll see Andre Blake, like I said, in goal, Ray Gaddis starting at right back, Jack Elliott, Mark McKenzie as the 2 center backs. I think Mbaizo is going to get the start again as a left back, which, he didn't play bad against Columbus, in my opinion, but with Jim Curtin coming out saying that about Matt Real, who is a natural left-footed left back, it makes sense to put him as opposed to Mbaizo always turning to his right foot, sending in crosses. But if Jim Curtin really feels that way about Matt Real, then yeah, it's going to be Mbaizo if Kai Wagner is not good to go. And then in the midfield, we just don't have depth in the midfield. We talked about this last episode, Ricky and I. It's going to be El Brujo at the number 6 position, Martina, Bedoya and Montero as the number 8s. And then it's going to be, obviously, Brendan Aronson at the top of the diamond in the 10 position. And then our 2 strikers, Andrew Vutin's, he's been giving opportunities. He just hasn't looked good at all. So it's going to be Casper and Sergio, I feel like. But, again, last press conference before we played Columbus, Jim Curtin said, I always want to rotate 2 to 3 guys per game because, these fixtures are coming thick and fast. 4 games not 4 games a week. I was going to say 4 games a week. That is not what's going on. 1 game every 4 days. There we go. Man, that would be something else if there was 4 games a week. Like, we think our midfield depth bad now, like we would have no midfield if we had 4 games a week. So, I mean, that's the lineup I think we're going with and everything, even though I want to see rotation in the midfield. It's just Jim doesn't trust anybody else. And I mean, could he throw Warren Carval out there? Maybe, but I don't think so. Maybe he's playing mind games. Maybe Kai Wagner comes back in. But yeah, the lineup I just gave, I think that's the lineup we see. I think it's going to end 1-1 and everything. I'm always hoping for a win, just like you are, I'm sure. But we're being realistic here, so I appreciate that about you. But I've had a blast talking to you, Matt, having you on the podcast and everything. And if you guys enjoy listening to Matt, just go ahead and tell everybody where they can find your podcast, where they can find you on social media and everything.
Once again, Todd, thank you so much for having me. This was an absolute blast. Can never get enough talking about soccer. Let's go with that. Especially someone who appreciates the MLS. Like I appreciate the MLS. I know you said at the beginning of the episode, we need more people talking about the MLS. I have a lot of friends who are absolute Euro snobs, and they have no issue describing themselves as Euro snobs. And they go, well, the MLS isn't up to the European par. And my response to that always is, how many years has the Italian league been in, contention? How long has the English Premier League been in contention? It's almost 200 years for some of these leagues. The MLS this year is celebrating their 25th year. If you look at the growth patterns, we're at a better acceleration rate than most of these other leagues. And the biggest part is the MLS pumps more money into sports than most of these other countries. So the big thing we have here is, I think by the time the MLS is in its 50th year, we can be contending with some of these other countries' second division leagues. Maybe not in our lifetime. Unfortunately, sometimes time moves a little too fast. But my goal in life is that the MLS is taking in the same consideration, or at least being talked in the same breath as some of the major European leagues. So we got to keep the conversation going. We need more people like you, Todd. And for those listening, we got to keep the conversation going. If you want to listen to something that is completely MLS neutral, we give you the updated news. We're not afraid to hit controversies. That's at Posts and Pints, at Posts and Pints. No other podcast in the world has that name. So we are at Post and Pints. It took us a very long time to come up with a name no one else had. Trust me, that process was hell. That was the hardest part about being in a podcast, is finding a name no one else has. But basically, it is 4 guys talking nothing about banter, beer, and soccer, all MLS, some world news. We're actually going through a lot of changes at the moment, but overall, it's still the same comedy level we've always kept it at. So again, it's available anywhere you get podcasts. Basically, we're covered across the board. We're starting to use YouTube a little bit more. And at least in the upcoming future, we have a studio set up and we're going to be doing actual live events. So it's going to be fun. Definitely worth the follow. Trust me. And we give away free stickers and coasters all the time. So, we do that all the time. So you scratch our back, we scratch yours.
Absolutely. And if you guys aren't following the podcast yet on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, follow at Free Kick Pod. Check out the website, thefreekickpodcast.com. Wherever you get your podcasts, The Free Kick, Todd Lewis. And I guess I'll say good luck, even though I really don't want you guys to get a result, but I'm being optimistic, and I'm not being optimistic. I'm being truthful. I think this game's going to end 1-1 and everything. But yeah, like you said, had a blast talking to you, and especially talking a little bit about Manchester United. It's been a while, even though, like I said, I don't talk about any other leagues on this podcast other than MLS and everything. But yeah, I guess good luck, Matt.
Hey, good luck to you. Don't be afraid to reach out to me if you want me back on. That's number 1. Number 2, we're going to definitely schedule something to have you on our podcast, because we want you a part of the banter as well. We accept all fan bases. So that's the first. We just enjoy hearing stories. That's our biggest thing. We love a good story. And then number 3, what are we talking? 3 years Manchester United's running for a title? I think 3 years is a good number. You're getting all those prime players right in those sweet ages. Mason Greenwood's going for a Ballon d'Or. Everything I dream about at night.
Absolutely. Well, nothing better than going off of a Mason Greenwood Ballon d'Or winning talk like that. So with that said, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.